Jibber, everyone. Welcome to Robin, Real and Raw. And this will be take 2 or so of me trying to record an introduction, not an introduction, but my early years, I would say. I'm going to try to unfold my life story pretty much sequentially, but I'm going to have to, of course, add certain elements to it. And if I hesitate a moment, it's because I'm thinking. I have not prepared a script. I'm just going ad lib as far as what I feel like the Lord wants me to say. So anyway, I'm in my 60s now. I won't disclose my total real age, maybe till later, but it's taken me all these years to figure out somewhat who I am, who is Robin. And it's just sad a little bit that it has taken all these years. And now with the times as they are, who knows how long we're going to be here. So that's a whole other subject that maybe I'll weave into the broadcast too. And I think my cat's seeing me in the chair, Mr. Vader, and he may want to join me. He likes to swing. You know that song. I finally found that song. Just to swing in. I am not a singer, I'll tell you that right now. Anyway, so at the end of all this, I'm hoping that my testimony will encourage somebody, one person maybe, hopefully a few, that you can overcome most anything. Of course, I've had to connect with Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit to get some sanity in my life, and I still don't admit to be insane, but I feel peace. I believe the goal in life for people is to be at peace, have some joy, and just be connected with others. Joy, peace, and I can't remember what the other fruit of the Spirit is that I want to say. There's more than one, of course. Anyway, I should know this, but I get on camera and I get tongue-tied. So I will do the best I can. I may end up doing just a podcast if things don't go a little better for me. So at the end, like I said, I've didn't get saved till in my 40s. So I say I had lots of years to reap a lot of chaos, destruction in my life. The other thing that was interesting is that my mom, we were raised, I guess, Episcopalian, barely went to church. I say I was pretty much raised in a heathen family. One thing my mom used to say is, "Oh, I don't believe there's a devil. I believe you get your hell on earth." And I totally believe that, because every time I seemed to do something bad, I got paid back in a certain way. And I may go into some of those details. I may not, because they're pretty personal. But that was one theory. You don't know any different if you're not told any different. So I was raised in a heathen family, I would say, compounded by the fact that my dad was a Mason. My mom even was in a form of the Masons. And I had generational Masonic on both sides of the family. It really shook me up when I saw my great-grandfather from Ireland that was dressed in full Masonic regalia, the skull and crossbone apron. If you know about Masonic at all, he had a sword, he had the hat, all of that, and I guess he was buried as a Mason. He had that ceremony. So the reason I say that, as I've spent years investigating and studying, and through my therapy, healing, counseling, deliverance, I've heard a lot told of what being in the Masons can mean to the generational people left over if the person and the Mason leave the organization, that the oaths they take come back onto the family. And I'll just say some of the fruit of knowing, that the Masonic is affecting your life is financial destruction, family feuding, unexplained illnesses that can't be cured, and all of that was in my family. And I'll be hopefully weaving that in, because there's some pretty crazy stories that have happened to both my mom and dad. Of course, my life has not been no picnic either. So, anyway, but I have been searching all these years for answers, really, of why I had such chaos in my life and it seemed like destruction. And I'm just on the edge of starting to get some of the answers, believe it or not. So that's going to be the journey here that you'll go through with me as going through the end of my healing journey, because at some point, not that you ever stop until we are with Jesus, and we're never perfect. Only Jesus was perfect. So anyway, but I'll share, my journey of how I got better from how I was. So anyway, I was born in Connecticut, New Haven, Connecticut. So I actually am a Yankee deep down. I didn't stay there just for a couple of years, but I still claim that I have the Yankee mindset that we're pretty direct, honest with people, and you know where we stand. You know where you stand with us. So that's one thing. I hang on to my Yankee roots. Connecticut people, I think are pretty mellow, nice people. So I claim that part of being a Yankee. But I do enjoy being around Yankees because they're direct. And like I said, you know where you stand with them. When I moved to the South, finally, it was quite different because I'm not putting down anybody, but a lot of Southerners, especially women, would smile at you and, oh, bless your heart, and then have a knife in their hand to to stab you in the back. Anyway, you can tell I've had lots of woundings from both male and female in my life. So starting with the way I was raised. I was conceived out of wedlock in the 50s. My parents got married. They had to get married. At least they chose to do that at 19. And so I wasn't wanted. And I guess they were both in college that I remember. I believe they told me my mom was in nursing school. My dad was in some kind of college, but that ended. So I discovered that my dad, of course, I found out years later I was conceived out of wedlock. So I didn't know all that until actually at my third wedding preparation, my mother dropped that on me. And I just knew, I would say I'm prophetic, intuitive, whatever, but I knew something was weird about my birth because supposedly they got married in December and I was born in September. And I was born, I found out later, a month late. So I don't think I even wanted to be born. I know, your child spirit, your embryo spirit senses, if you're wanted or not and all that. I believe there's been a lot of research on that. So being conceived out of wedlock, and then in my baby book, which I just found, and I should have had it in front of me to be prepared, but I didn't. And I don't want to stop this because it'll get out of order. But my dad wrote in my baby book, today a daughter was born to me. At first, to me, it was a shame, but I am sure she'll bring me pride and fame. So I took it to me that my dad wanted a boy, and my mom was gracious. She was a docile housewife type. I believe, by the way, both my parents are deceased. So, they're never hear this. I would probably not be speaking about it this way if they were alive still. So my dad also, again, loved study and research, and I love to dig deep into things. And just not that long ago, I realized my dad was the classic narcissist. And I'm sure that all of his weirdness and issues came from the way he was raised. And, it's down the line. I don't blame my parents. They're just products of the way they were raised also. So I can't, say like, now that I'm mature, when I was younger, I really did hate my dad and I would yell at him, as a preteen, I hate you, because I truly did. So that being, raised by a narcissistic dad, and he was a workaholic. His main goal in life was to make money. I believe my mom also had a desire to be rich too. And she just went along with everything. And that my dad did. Again, she was, I think, the docile housewife until, things happened to her to change her in life. I also had a brother that was 18 years, 18 months younger, Richard. Some of you know him. He is now deceased as of a year ago. He was, again, I guess 65, and he died from an accidental overdose of crack cocaine. He was found dead in his man shed last year by his ex-wife, or I don't know, he's living with his ex-wife, whatever. So that was, sad, but yet I rejoiced for him because he had been a drug addict, mainly crack, for years and years. He struggled with that. And I believe it was from being raised in the environment that we were being raised in. Everyone reacts their own way, and I had my way of reacting, and he had his way of dealing with things. And I actually think he had it easier because he was a boy, and, they wanted a boy. My dad did. But my dad did not give either one of us much attention except to yell at us. And to me, he was very mentally abusive. He apparently, I just, like I said, I think he resented me. He didn't want me. So I was very shy and withdrawn. My mom said I didn't even talk till I was like 2 years old. Again, I'm very intellectual, deep thinker type person, analytical. So I've analyzed a lot of this and again studied the effects of different things on your brain and your life and on and on. But my dad would, call me klutz and clod, which I looked up the meaning of clod one time. That's a piece of cow, patty or whatever. I won't say the real word because they usually don't talk like that unless I'm in traffic. And I might come out with some words, especially in Atlanta. So anyway, all he would do, it seemed like, was yell. And the more he yelled, it was very tense, very, very tense. We couldn't laugh at the dinner table. We get yelled at. And my brother, believe, was bipolar. I mean, they didn't know all this back then, but I remember my brother pacing the, house in the middle of the night constantly, and there was just something wrong with him. So my brother would cause chaos too, and we were getting yelled at. My brother would get beat with a belt. I usually wouldn't, I'd just retreat. And I created my own little world and shell to live in. My dad said one time, Robin lives in her own little thermos bottle. I said, yeah, that's kind of true because also I have symptoms of Asperger's, and I don't say things right sometimes. I'm socially awkward. Sometimes I can be social, but I can't lie. That's another thing. There's just all these symptoms I have that lead me to believe I have Asperger's. Lights bother me, sounds immensely. Sounds, lights. I don't like crowds. I can't be in crowds, things like that. So we moved around a lot. Was in Connecticut for a couple years. Then we moved. I can't remember all the order that we moved in, but I averaged it out as an ex-accounting manager. Every 2.5 years we moved until we finally got to Atlanta area when I was 17. So we lived Connecticut twice because we lived with my grandparents for a while in Wallingford. My dad was with Nationwide Insurance. He wasn't in the military. He said he kept getting promoted. Now I'm questioning a lot, which will come out later why I'm questioning a lot in my life. We lived in Columbus, Ohio. We lived above White Plains, New York, when my father had a job in White Plains. So we lived in a rural area called near Terrytown. Oh, it was called Congers, New York. It was like Podunk Town, a post office, and one little tiny store, and that was about it. But my brother and I had a great time exploring. It was real rural, had these shacks and little mysteries. Oh, yeah, I remember riding. I loved horses. I wanted to buy a horse more than anything. So I studied books on horses, but there was a hunchback pony that I was trying to ride. I just wanted to ride any kind of horse. So I remember I just thought of this hunchback pony. And then there was, these rumors that, guy that got knifed in the eye, lived in one of these broken down buildings. He was a hermit, just stuff like that. So that actually was part of my childhood I could remember, because most of my childhood I don't remember. It's blocked out. We lived in Raleigh, North Carolina. Let's see, Ohio, Connecticut, New York, and then finally ended up moving to Fort Lauderdale, Florida when I was 14. But I can't remember schools or teachers, anything like that, hardly. Now, memories are starting to come up a little bit more that I'm doing this, which is weird how you start focusing on your life. Memories get stirred up. I find that pretty interesting too. So something happened to me that I have a blocked memory from, I figured out I was 5 years old, and I have some kind of big trauma and a blocked memory that I had to deal with in therapy in my mid 30s. So I still haven't been able to get to that memory. Been in therapy for a year on that one, and even was hypnotized. For all you Christians, yes, I repented of being hypnotized and all that, but I could not get at the memory. But once I started that therapy, I had an open vision in traffic. Thank goodness it was rush hour and it was moving very slowly, but it's like a movie started unfolding in front of me. And my mom verified when I told her what it was, talking about this man walking with white hair through our yard, I guess, and he had a cane. And my mom's like, yeah, that must have been our neighbor. He had a cane with a knife in it. Maybe that scared you, because at the end of the memory, the only thing that is very obvious to me was that I was hiding dirt crawl space under our house in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the clay, the red dirt. I had a pink party dress on with, from old times, a pinafore, a white pinafore, and my mom confirmed, oh yeah, that was the dress I made you. So it must have been some kind of party. And here I'm sitting there I'm so frightened of something that I'm under the house in a crawl space with spiders and whatever, who knows what was down there. And through therapy, we tried to get at that memory. I just finally gave up. I was like, oh my gosh, it wears you out when you're trying to push something. Obviously, God didn't want me to remember the memory, because I talked to other people that have had like memories of traumatic things, and they usually have them pop up in their 50s. The therapist said that he thought I was molested. He showed me those ink blot tests and all that. But all I saw in those tests were, they were black and red. All I saw were mutilated animals, not good things. So that's another mystery that I'm hoping to get maybe to the bottom of. I don't give up. I do take a rest for a while from the healing process, because it's been quite the journey. So the other thing that affected me greatly was that, we moved every couple years, and I was always the new kid at school. I'm extremely shy. I have severe buck teeth. I had to have braces for 3.5 years. So I'm getting mocked, called Bucky Beaver, and I got the Robin Redbreast, which embarrassed me so much. And it was just very, very traumatic to me to go through all the mocking and, teasing. Kids are mean, as we know. Bullying, I guess it would be. And then I never had any roots. Never, got to put down roots anywhere. I admire people that say, oh, I got these childhood friends from school and since the 6th grade or 5 years old. I don't have any of that. I had some friends, one or two in middle school, and I did drop out of school. That's another story. So that part was traumatic. I'll be very transparent, because I was so shy that I remember this memory, that I I wouldn't raise my hand to ask to go to the restroom. So I had an accident with my chair. I do remember some teacher being very kind saying, "Oh, Robin, somebody must have spilled a drink, by your desk." But I just wanted to crawl into the floor and die. I mean, it was bad. So there's something that caused me to retreat into myself, been therapy and healing, deliverance, whatever, for over 25 years altogether, and still don't have the total answer, but I am getting closer to it. And I love mysteries. I love solving puzzles and things like that. So I look at it like that. Also, my mom had her part in, being a little bit abusive, because I remember, again, I had this one memory that I was screaming top of my lungs as a child, and I was in a crib, and I was hanging on the little railings of the crib. I knew I could stand up, and I was hanging there screaming. I figure I was maybe 18 months or less. And I asked my mom, this all started coming up once I started therapy and Christian counseling and all that. My mom said, "Oh, that must have been the time I threw a wet, cold washcloth in your face to shut you up." Now I'm thinking, I have children. Is that a nice way to, treat your child? I mean, I don't believe I was having a tantrum. I have tried to go back into that memory through ministry sessions, and I believe I was afraid of something in my room. I think I could see in the spirit. I I think I can now, but it got shut down, as a child, because I was seeing stuff in my room and all that. My parents were like, "Oh, it was a bad dream. You're just imagining stuff." I'd see a dream cloud over my bed. I told my parents that I said, "Oh, yeah, I saw the tooth fairy come. I saw her because I saw all this sparkling glitter standing beside my bed." And I think it was an angel, maybe, but I said I didn't know. I mean, we weren't, like I said, Christians exactly. So I said it must be the tooth fairy. I forget if I had a tooth under my pillow, even. Remember? Oh my gosh, remember? Yeah, you lose a tooth, you put it under a pillow and get some money, all that routine. So my mom had her part, and I'd say being abusive. The worst time, my dad, it was constant with him. Again, yelling. I'd knock over the salt shaker. He'd have a fit. Of course, I'd knock over my milk because I was nervous. I was tense. I was uptight in that situation. He'd come home from work, and all he'd do is sit in his recliner, yell at us. So that all went on. Another thing I remember that was traumatic is we went to get pizza. Maybe it was that New York pizza, because it seemed like we drove from Connecticut to New York. And I was probably under 10, I would think. And we had the pizza, which was, exciting for us. We never went out much. And the mozzarella cheese gets all strung up and all that. Well, it got stuck in my throat. I was choking on it. I really couldn't breathe. And so my dad's yelling at me because he's embarrassed in public that I dare choke and make them look bad. My dad was a perfectionist, by the way, too. I mean, total perfectionist. Everything he did had to be perfect. He shot golf at a pro score level. I don't know much about it. He was a skier. He did ski jumping, all that. He was always excelled at everything he did, including his career. So he had his issues too. So yeah, instead of somebody patting me on the back as I'm choking, I get yelled at because I'm embarrassing them or whatever. So that was one thing. And another memory popped up recently, just this week. I was talking to my daughter about dogs, how traffic's dangerous for dogs, whatever. So this I remembered, and this was very traumatic. I think I was maybe 11. So my mom and dad went out. I think we were staying with my grandmother in Fort Lauderdale, and my mom had a little terrier type dog that loved her so much. So they leave, and then the dog's at the door, wanting to get out. So I let it out. I didn't know. Well, it went to find my mom in the car, tried to, I guess, chase the car. I don't know if it was right after, that close, but it got hit by a car and killed. So my dad comes home. I don't remember the order of the whole thing, but all I know is my mom goes hysterical, crying. Her poor dog was, hit by a car, killed. My dad looks at me and he goes, "You did this. You killed your mom's dog. It's your fault." And was yelling at me about killing my mother's dog. And I'm just standing there going, "Oh my gosh." And again, I think that we weren't allowed to show emotions. Oh, my bird clock. It's 3 o'clock here. Yeah. The bird clock. First, the cats were looking at it like, "Are there birds in here?" Yeah, I have to keep track of time in different ways. And the bird clock helps me. Plus, I love birds with a name like Robin. So that was another memory. So all this did affect me, as a child. We were supposed to be perfect, I guess. You didn't have any problems in our family. Well, swept any problems under the carpet, things like that. But that created an atmosphere to where, I did not have a happy home life at all. I really did highly dislike my dad. Now, knowing we didn't even have a Bible in the house, so I didn't know the scripture, "Honor thy father and thy mother, so things will go well with you." And things did not go well in my life for quite a while until, I got saved, like I said, in my 40s and started learning scripture. I went into Elijah House counseling to start out with. It was in 2001. So I started seeing, wow, okay, there are spiritual laws that apply. Just like there's a law of gravity, you hold up a pencil and it falls to the ground. That's the law of gravity. There's also spiritual laws too. So I was in Elijah House ministry with a person for a year. I, I wanted to learn more. So I became certified in Elijah House. That took 8 months. So I learned so much, about the spiritual dynamics can affect your life. And one of them, big one for me, was do not judge, lest you be judged, and to the measure you judge, it shall be measured back to you. As years go on, the judgment grows like a snowball. So I had judged my dad that he was mentally cruel and abusive. So what did I read about him with husbands? The last two were maybe two. Yeah, I think two. Yeah, last two out of five, it gets hard. Oh, and then I had a couple live-in boyfriends. So probably had like 7 husbands in reality. At least I hadn't caught up to Liz Taylor or anything. I have a I have a friend of a friend that she's been married. Last count was 10 times, and she said, "Well, if a guy buys me flowers, I feel like I'm supposed to marry him." And that's kind of like I was, because how I was, because I had such low self-esteem because of not getting built up in my family. Also, yeah, let guys pick me. So I thought if they liked me, I was like, "Oh my gosh, somebody likes me. I better, marry him." I don't know. It was really off. So, but I don't, you know, I thank God that I did have the experiences I've had. No, it's not easy to look back and think about at time, but they made me who I am today because I've had my fights with God and when I got saved, I was really mad at him. I'm like, "Why did you wait all this time to save me? I wouldn't have to go through all this trauma that I've been through my whole life. If you had saved me earlier." But God had his hand on my life. As I tell these stories, you'll see. I mean, I'm still here, actually 68. So I will, that's getting up there towards 70, which freaks me out. So yeah, I want to make my life count. And if I can help somebody through talking about my testimony, how I've gotten healed, through knowing Jesus and, of course, getting some ministry and deliverance at times, all that, I hope I can help someone. All right, so this is probably enough for today. At least I didn't say gibber every 3 minutes. And I have a bad habit of saying so and so. And I do that when I write emails. I don't know where that comes from, but I'm trying to work on this and make myself speak better and clearer and enunciate. because my voice was so soft. I think that was from me not being heard or allowed to speak as I was young either. I thought, well, I don't have anything important to say. So, you know, why speak loud? And then the other habit I had was I would mumble. I would start a sentence very loud and then I'd trail off at the end because I think it was that, well, I don't have anything, that anyone wants to hear. So I figured, I was so insecure, just so insecure. So anyway, that's why I'm rejoicing so much now that I feel like, I'm somebody at least. And, I'm a new creation in Christ, but that didn't happen to me for quite a while. All right. Well, I'm going to sign off and I pray blessings on everyone that has listened to this. And I guess subscribe to my channel if you would, please. I don't know how all that works exactly, and like it. Oh, maybe I'll get to be a millionaire off my YouTube channel. Haha. No, God can do anything. But yeah, it's quite interesting studying the analytics of YouTube. And I'm going to put this on Rumble too, in case I start saying things that YouTube won't allow. All right. Well, you all have a blessed day and weekend since it's Friday right now, but it'll probably take me some hours to edit all this. All right. Well, again, be blessed. Love y'all.